Recently, everybody's favorite faculty member, the professor from Tolarian Community College, has been releasing videos of what he's calling build your own precons. Decks under $50 that are right around the pre-constructed power level, with tips on the upgrade as well. And I love this concept. If you've seen my recent precon upgrade guides, linked up top, you'll know that I'm a big fan of how good the precons are getting. Long gone are the days where precons would be 3 different decks mashed into one. Now we have focused, streamlined decks that can be upgraded with a couple of bucks and a couple of cards. And I wouldn't be a brewmaster without throwing my hat into the ring for these unofficial precons. So I introduce to you Casting Crushers, a red and blue deck that can be built for just $45 as of time of recording. It's focused on casting powerful spells to make tokens and crush your opponents. Our face legendary is the new Ovika Enigma Goliath. This 7-mana Phyrexian Nightmare is a 6/6 with flying, and also has ward for 3 mana and 3 life, meaning if your opponents want to target Ovika with a spell or ability, it'll cost them 3 more mana and lightning bolt them. Lastly and bestly, whenever we cast a non-creature spell, we make X/1/1 Phyrexian Goblin creature tokens with haste. So not only is Ovika a big flying threat on their own, but that last ability means that casting any spell with them on the battlefield instantly creates us a Goblin army. That last ability, making tokens on spellcast, is the theme that we'll see running through this entire deck. Not only is Ovika a token generation engine, but we've got the likes of Third Path Iconoclast, Young Pyromancer, and Murmuring Mystic all doing the same. This means that, while the creature count in the deck seems low, you'll never be at a loss for attackers or blockers. Every time you cast a spell, you'll be generating a small army. And casting spells is what this deck is good at. There are 27 instants and sorceries that fuel your on-cast triggers. But before we take a look at the deck, be sure to hit all those good buttons. Don't leave without subscribing to the channel. It means you get to see all my cool brews. Now these spells range from draw spells like Brainstorm, Factor Fiction, and Treasure Cruise, through to removal spells like the classic Chaos Warp, Blasphemous Act, and Aether Spouts. And let's not forget some real game enders like Epic Experiment, Explosive Singularity, and in this deck, Massive Raid. Remember, player removal is the most efficient removal. But with a 7-mana commander, we need help getting them out in a timely manner. So we have Rituals, spells that make us bonus mana temporarily. These range from draw spells that generate treasures like Pirate's Pillage, Big Score, and Unexpected Windfall, through to Mana Geysers, Seething Song, and Rousing Refrain, all aimed at helping us jump to 7 mana for Ovika, or to cast some of our bigger spells ahead of curve. We've got plenty in the deck that will help us make our spells easier to cast, too. Since we want to be casting big spells with Ovika out, let's see what we can do to discount those spells a bit. Goblin Electromancer gives us a nice discount on our spells, as he is wont to do. Sorcerer class allows us to tap our tokens for additional spellcasting mana once we level it up. Jace's Sanctum helps with our card quality by scrying every turn, and reduces the cost of our instants and sorceries. And the brand new Mind Splice apparatus is a great way to get big bonuses to our spells the sooner it hits the battlefield, making them cost a lot less in the long run. But let's not stop at casting just our own spells, no. Everyone knows that I like copying things, and that's even more fun when you're copying your opponent's things. So included in the deck are Etali Primal Storm, an amazing way to get us lots of free spells. Dazzling Sphinx, who casts random spells off your opponent's libraries on combat damage. Chaos Wand, to spin the wheel for instants and sorceries from your opponent's decks. And the deck's heavy hitter, Mind's Dilation, getting you free spells from your opponent's libraries whenever they cast their first spell each turn. We want to make sure we're using the tokens we're generating for more than just attacking. There is a lot of use that we can get from them, like fueling our draw engines. The deck does include both Bident of Thassa and Reconnaissance Mission, turning our little token friends into huge sources of card draw whenever they connect for damage. And we can take advantage of these tokens entering the battlefield too. Witty Roastmaster pings each opponent whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, making for a great source of passive damage. Devilish Valet can easily reach powers in the triple digits when we cast a large enough spell, thanks to doubling his power whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control. Having Trample is big help for ending the game for a player or two. And Hobgoblin Bandit Lord not only pumps those goblin tokens Ovika creates, but also has an activated ability that can help us dome opponents for big damage based on the number of goblins we created. But the biggest and meanest might be Junkwinder. This 7-mana 5/6 Serpent has affinity for tokens, meaning with just a few out, it can cost as little as 2 mana. But whenever a token enters the battlefield under our control, we can freeze permanents our opponents control, tapping them and preventing them from untapping. Let me tell you, I've used this card alone to remove blockers, tap down mana rocks, to go on the offensive or be defensive. It's one of the deck's all-stars without a doubt. There's such a great array of cards in the deck. The question is often, how does it play? So let's take a look at some of the play patterns involved in a deck like Casting Crushers. First and most importantly, your commander costs a lot of mana, and then demands you cast spells too. That can make the top end of your deck, and some of your most explosive players, very costly. So to ensure you get at least some value out of Ovika the turn you cast them, considering the risk of someone removing through that hefty ward cost, you either need to be armed with additional mana or have free spells at the ready. This may mean casting Ovika ahead of connecting with a Natali or Dazzling Sphinx to set yourself up with a full squad ready to go. Or it may mean keeping back a spell that can be cast for free, like a Mogg Salvage or Misdirection, both in the deck, to get at least a few goblins on the ground, or even allowing you to protect your commander further. Some of the deck's biggest plays can come late game and take the timing of your abilities into account, like casting a Surge to Victory. Ovika's ability to create goblins is on cast, and those goblins have haste, so casting a Surge to Victory on a board with only Ovika generates 6 goblins that are in play and able to attack, and get the Surge to Victory buff when it resolves. That can be an out-of-nowhere win just on attack if you exile a spell like Dig Through Time. But keep in mind that Surge to Victory also says, copy that spell, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. Meaning, for each beefy attacker that connects, you now get to create more and more goblins. It's important to note that your tokens aren't going to be the biggest, but you should be casting 1 to 2 spells a turn cycle, making sure you've got plenty of them at the very least. If you get to untap with Ovika on board, it's typically game over for your opponents, so protect her with your removal. The deck has minimal counter spells, so keep that in mind. Now this wouldn't be a precon if there weren't still options to customize the deck, so I've included a Pivot Commander in the 99, as all good precons do. And Casting Crusher's Pivot Commander is Vadrik Astral Archmage. This 3-mana human wizard discounts all of our instants and sorceries by X, where X is his power. Additionally, he introduces the day-night cycle to the game, allowing you to put a counter on him whenever day and night change. This fundamentally warps how the deck works, shifting you away from token generation and more towards spell slinging, encouraging you to draw, play a land, and pass your turn in order to get day and night switching to pump Vadrik further. This means you're leaning much more into your instants, and if you were to shift the build this way, further adding to your counterspell suite with an Offer You Can't Refuse, Narset's Reversal, and Tybalt's Trickery would be good advice. If Wizards were putting together this precon, I'd love to see it as a perfect place to reprint Fierce Guardianship and Deflecting Swat. Free spells and Ovika are a match made in heaven, and since neither have seen a reprint, putting them in a precon would be some really good added value. Also, Training Center. The battle lands should be reprinted in every Commander precon. This is the format that they were made for. They should be affordable and plentiful, and putting them in a precon should be a no-brainer. Now for the upgrade. If I were to add a few cards and a few bucks to this deck, what would it look like? More passive damage is a great place to start. Witty Roastmaster is awesome, but let's also get Impact Tremors in the deck. This common is pushing $6 at the time of recording and is lacking a reprint. Putting it in the precon would be a good first step. Then there's Skullclamp. I'm famously concerned that Skullclamp has been reprinted over a dozen times and is still a $7 card. But with the volume of 1/1 tokens we're making, this is a single card that can solve all of our card draw concerns and should be a priority upgrade. I'd love to be able to fit Jeska's Will in the list too, of course, a strong ritual that can help power out our expensive commander. And late game, if we have Ovika out, well, the mana and card draw can certainly enable a huge swing in the volume of our hasty little goblins. And to really give our army some bite, I would recommend an enchantment like Shared Animosity. I mentioned our little tokens aren't very threatening, but there can be when there are dozens of them. Dozens! Then for my last upgrade recommendation, Arcane Bombardment. This enchantment means you can be casting multiple spells for free each and every turn. It's also sitting at about $4 right now, meaning it's not even very expensive to include. Pick it up if you're considering any red spell-slinging build, and in this deck, it's perfect. Let me know what you think of this deck and the build your own precon concept in general. Do you want to see more of these on the channel? The full deck list for Casting Crushers is linked in the description below. Be sure to check out my upgrades for these official precons as well, and don't leave without hitting that subscribe button. As always, folks, good luck and have fun.